The Seahorse Effect by Sierra Steinbecker. Chapter 30. Luke and Leia. When Anakin finally came back to the physical, there was a throbbing in his lower belly and he felt a bit unsteady. "Padme," he asked, and then she was next to him with something wrapped in a blanket. There was a huge smile on her face as she sat on one of the kitchen chairs next to him and lowered the bundle. "This is our little boy, Annie," she whispered in delight. With a weak hand, he reached out and tugged down one end of the blanket. His son's skin was red and a bit blotchy, but his hair was clean, soft, and the exact same shade of blonde Anakin had when he was younger. Tiny little eyes were closed, so he couldn't see their color. He ran a finger across the baby's smooth cheek. This was his son! His son! A smile broke across his face. He looked up at Padme. "This is Luke, then." Then someone cleared their throat. Anakin looked over at the other side of the bed. There sat Obi-Wan with a second bundle. His smile widened when the two new parents looked at the wrapped blanket, one with delight, the other in wonder. "Anakin," he beamed, "would you like to meet your daughter?" The young man nodded, so Obi-Wan placed the little girl on his left side, gingerly so he didn't jostle the IV needle still lodged in the crease of his elbow. Anakin cupped her tiny cheek. Unlike her brother, the little lady was completely bald, but with smooth skin. Her eyes were wide open and the typical shade of baby blue. He tried to raise his arm to pull the blanket so he could see more of her face, but the motion pulled at the needle and he grunted from the pain. "Hold out your arm," Obi-Wan said. Anakin did, and the master gently extracted the needle. He applied a Bacta patch to the puncture wound, wrapped the arm in a soft bandage, and tucked the limb around the baby girl, staring at her daddy's face. Then he retreated to the living room. Plenty of time to talk about plans and such later. Right now, he'd just let them spend some time with their children. He had thought to relax in the living room, but he passed it and went outside. The depth of Anakin's and Padme's happiness was something he'd never felt before. Sure, he felt happy when he finished a mission, and the day his apprentice had been knighted was a day of great joy. But nothing he'd experienced came close to what he'd just seen. Perhaps it's something only parents get to experience. Then images flooded his mind of a little girl with 3 buttons in her hair, with his warm brown eyes. His heart swelled with longing. Would this mean my daughter? He wondered, if I too broke the code? No, he couldn't think like that. The code was absolute, a Jedi's greatest protection against the dark side, against despair, fear, anger. But, a traitorous voice whispered, Anakin broke it, and he hasn't gone dark. He's lighter than you are. The thought shocked him back to reality. He looked around. Somehow, he'd ended up in the jungle next to a starfighter. In the periphery of his mind, he could feel the mass of the living force around him, calling him to come and play. Instead, he turned his thoughts inward. His force presence was clean and bright, with a few gray streaks, but almost no true black. Anakin had had many more black threads in his force presence the last time Obi-Wan looked, before the younger man had taken his sabbatical. Perhaps he should look again. The Jedi Master sank to the jungle floor and folded his legs underneath him as he directed his sense towards the mass of light sitting in the slight darkness that indicated the house. It was a beautiful sight, Obi-Wan noted. The 2 smaller bundles of life, the twins, shone like speeder headlights, purer than any other person. But of course, they were the son and daughter of the Chosen One, and their presences had not yet been tainted by the world. Padme, as someone with little sensitivity, was more background light than a real presence. So Obi-Wan turned his scrutiny on Anakin. Anakin was a supernova. Bright light penetrated his somewhat dim surroundings, shifting and changing shape. One moment it was a sunburst of brilliance, the next it was a haze of light hiding his family from Obi-Wan, and then it shifted again into thick tendrils that wrapped around the others nearby. Before the form could shift again, Obi-Wan spotted a dark strand in the thick cord around the little girl and grabbed it. Sadness, heavily tinged with love and understanding, swept over him, but didn't drown him. It was as if someone had taken sadness and made it beautiful. He's going to leave her with Padme, Obi-Wan realized. They've already planned what to do, and that means giving up his daughter. He lurched out of the meditation and ran a hand through his hair. That sadness was the only dark emotion he'd seen in his apprentice, and it was because of the Jedi Code. To keep secret the fact that he had broken the code, an act that had given him joy that Obi-Wan had never witnessed before, he would give up one, maybe both of his children if things didn't work out with the Order. Could the code drive someone to the dark side? His heart clenched at that thought, but with what he'd just seen, he couldn't simply push the idea away. So with reluctance, he sank back into the Force, hoping for further wisdom.